Contrary to the clocks in the room, it is 9 o'clock on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. This is the Iroquois County Board. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Alt.
Here.
Behrens.
Here.
Benz.
Here.
Bowers.
Here.
Pro. Ducat.
Here.
Geiger.
Here.
Hughes.
Here.
McGinnis.
Here.
McTaggart.
Here.
Awful. Sure.
Here.
Watts.
Here.
Whitlow.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
And Zumwalt.
Present.
Alrighty.
Okay, Mrs. Awful.
Yes, good morning. Today we have Pastor Bart Kester from Evangelical Church in Lexington.
Good morning.
Morning.
Psalm 121 says, I lift my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all good things that you give us. We thank you for making heaven and earth. Lord, we thank you for creating each one of us. God, we thank you for being our one and only source of help. God, today we call upon that help. Lord, we ask that you would guard and protect this county and each person that lives in it. Father, I pray a blessing of peace on each family represented in this room. And Lord, I pray that you would grant wisdom and understanding and unity to this board as they meet and discuss and decide things today. Lord, for all these things, we trust you. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe everybody has a copy of the agenda in front of them. Do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Geiger, is there a second? Mr. Zumwalt, are there any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Everybody's been sent a copy of the minutes from the February 14th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? Mrs. Awful, is there a second? Mr. Bowers, are there any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Next is payroll. We have a motion to approve the payroll. Mr. McGinnis, Mr. Behrens. Too many hands at once. Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the payroll? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Behrens.
Yes.
Benz.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Pro. Ducat.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes.
Awful.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Zumwalt.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Okay, do we have any public comments this morning?
I have one.
Scott?
A couple meetings ago, the topic of the seating arrangement in here was brought up. And while some people might think it's a trivial topic, I just want to take a few brief moments to explain my thinking on this. If you talk to law enforcement people, public safety officials, and self-defense consultants or instructors, they would tell you that one of the most important things a person can have in a public setting is a sense of situational awareness. And I believe with this arrangement, how we're sitting right now, the majority of board members don't get a sufficient amount of situational awareness. Views of access and entry, exiting, the behaviors of the people in the meeting, and I just think we could improve this. I know several years ago when this board was even larger than it is now, we had better visibility, and I just believe in this day and age, we should revisit the way this is set up. So I thank you for the time.
Okay, are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll forego the chairman comments and move on to the outside organization reports. Mrs. Crawford.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Iroquois County Board and guests. I'm Angel Crawford, the Executive Director with the Iroquois Economic Development Association. Here is the IDA news for March. I attended the 34th Annual Rural Community and Economic Development Conference in Springfield and learned about some exciting initiatives happening this year. Some of these initiatives include Kristen Richards, the new director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, talking about DCEO refocusing specifically on rural communities. Alexander Benishek with Mattoon in Motion talked about how the city of Mattoon created a $12,000 incentive program, which in turn generated 1,700 remote worker applications in 6 weeks. I also sat on a session with Nick Davis with the Lieutenant Governor's Office, who spoke about the Agricultural Equity and Food Insecurity Initiative, which digs deep into the food insecurities and looks further into access of food for families through local grocery stores, food banks, community gardens, and small farming operations. I also attended a broadband session with Nancy Andriego from the University of the Illinois Extension, along with Jeanette Tamio with the University of Illinois System, on the updated statewide broadband map. The rollout of the Illinois Broadband Lab, which happened the week before, and learned about future initiatives for what's called a rollout reach out. And this will start in Southern Illinois, talking to communities about, number one, affordability. Can you afford the internet? Number two, connectivity. Is your upload download speed sufficient? Number three, digital literacy. Do you need help with today's technology? Number four, the need for digital equipment. Do you have technology needed for school and work? Be sure to look for more of this coming to our area in the next couple of months. I did touch base with them and let them know that, we would like to be participants in this, so hopefully we'll hear from them. I also attended the Ag Tech Summit at the University of Illinois last week in Champaign. And some of the buzzwords I heard from representatives from major ag companies were ag innovation, startup ag companies, STEM leaders, ag tech talent, precision ag, of course, workforce cross-training, youth barriers, digital literacy, again, and autonomous machinery. And we've heard about that, which is happening a lot at the research center at UI. Helping farmers with profitability was the main focus of the conference, and leveraging digital data to optimize each plant was mentioned as being an end goal. Seeing how our schools and businesses in Iroquois County will develop these ag-related skills and goals in the future is something IDA wants to be part of, and we will do our best to help in this process. In closing, last Friday was the 2023 Kankakee Watershed Conference at Kankakee Community College. This conference is a follow-up to the first Watershed Conference in 2017 and has great importance by showing what has transpired over the last 5 years, how communities are working together to take action over flooding, and how we can help promote our communities with one of the best resources we have in our counties, the rivers. Over 150 people attended this one-day event, which featured topics on water capacity and use, sand and sediment, biodiversity, nutrients and agriculture, state initiatives, river recreation, and watershed initiatives. We learned about how water is cleaned from rivers through water filtering processes, how steps are being taken to create safe waterways, preservation of natural habitat in and along the rivers, ways to keep our fish abundant and thriving, prevention measures to help lower the amount of runoff into rivers, past flooding events and how we can work to make it better, how to restore our rivers to re-stabilize the banks, remove log jams, create spillways so that there's overflow for places for the water to go, and hydro seeding banks to prevent future erosion. How Riverside Parks are highlighting history, preserving nature, enjoying camping, and providing horseback riding to soak in all the sights. Communities are also planning projects to create family-friendly riverfront attractions like canoe launches, airboat rides, amphitheaters, river cruises, and even a white water course for canoeists, kayakers, and tubers alike. This conference brought together many communities and organizations to talk about the future of our great watershed. We will continue to join together to help communities grow and look forward to more progress to help in the prevention of flooding. I will be compiling a summary of the conference and providing a link to this conference recording to those who are interested. And for more information on these topics, please call our office at 815-432-0072. It was mentioned that one of the things that Ida would be good at, which would be talking about the businesses, the new businesses that are coming to Iroquois County. And I apologize for not, making that relative at these meetings, but I hope to do that in the future. I'm going to be reaching out to the communities and asking them to give me that information too. I can't be all the way, one place at all times, or all places at one time, I guess, that's the thing. So, does anyone have any questions? Wonderful, thank you.
Are there any other outside organizations? Seeing none, we'll move on to the committee reports. Better take my glasses. Otherwise, I can't see what I'm doing. Right? I can't see it anyway.
You can lip sync it.
Members of the county board, your committee to whom was referred policy and procedure would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on March 2, 2023 at 9 a.m. Members present were Scher, Ducat, Behrens, Alt, and Awful. Michael McTaggart and Jed Whitlow were absent. Also present Finance Manager Joe Johnson and County Clerk Brian Sewer. The meeting is called to order. It was moved by Behrens and seconded by Ducat to amend the agenda to enter into executive session following public comments. That motion carried by a voice vote. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Ducat to approve the amended agenda. A roll call vote was taken, that motion carried. There were no public comments. It was moved by Ducat and seconded by Behrens to enter into executive session at 9:04 a.m. under 5 ILCS 120/2/C1. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. That motion carried by a voice vote. It was moved by Alt and seconded by Behrens to come out of executive session at 9:46 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote. It was moved by Behrens and seconded by Awful to authorize Executive Assistant Amanda Longfellow to institute a background check on Danielle Vollmer. That motion carried by a voice vote. The committee chairs gave their monthly reports. Management Chairman Behrens reported the committee will put fertilizer out for bid for the county farm. County Board Chairman Scher added the state of Illinois has a law coming soon that will allow us to handle our county farm as we have been. Some outside discussions has been held about custom farming, but we will not be required to make these changes. Tax Planning and Zoning Chairman Ducat reported the committee will hear their standard reports. The American Rescue Plan Act Committee will continue reviewing applications. Health Chairman Awful reported the committee will hear their standard reports. Highway Sherman Hall report, the Highway Committee will take action on the bid letting held on February 28th. Executive Assistant Amanda Longfellow explained the process of establishing a Facebook page for Iroquois County Board. The account will be linked to Longfellow's personal Facebook account, and administrative credentials will also be shared with Finance Manager Joe Johnson. If necessary, the credentials can be shared with other department heads if necessary in the future. Longfellow said after speaking with others regarding the Facebook pages that they manage for their departments, she believes the comment and messaging option should be disabled. If a member of the public wishes to reach someone, adequate contact information will be available to them via the Facebook page. Longfellow asked for direction when setting up the page as to whether the account will be for Iroquois County or Iroquois County Board. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Behrens to authorize Executive Assistant Amanda Longfellow to proceed with creating an Iroquois County Facebook page for the use of all departments. A roll call vote was taken, that motion carried. Finance Manager Joe Johnson gave an update on the sexual harassment training. The completion rate is at 44%. Johnson will email the link to those that need to complete the training and can hold an in-person training again if needed. Johnson said she held a training following the county board meeting and there were only 2 attendees. Longfellow suggested attaching the training instructions to payroll vouchers next week. County Clerk Brian Silver presented an ordinance to be adopted for Iroquois County travel and expense reimbursement. In 2016, the state legislature passed the Local Government Travel Expense Control Act, which required counties to pass an ordinance that set the amount employees would be reimbursed and also established a standardized form for all employees to use. In November 2016 and January 2017, the county board passed amounts reimbursed of $140 for lodging and $50 for meals and incidentals when employees are required to travel for Iroquois County job-related duties. Silver said the county board also approved the standardized form. However, an ordinance was not passed, meaning nothing was formally adopted by the county board. The matter was brought up at last month's Policy and Procedure Committee meeting while reviewing the Personnel Policy Manual and the notes provided by ICRMT. Silver created an ordinance using formats from Grundy County and Kankakee County, but it has not been reviewed by State's Attorney Jim Devine. Johnson also received a sample ordinance from ICRMT that might be a better fit for the county to approve. Scheer said he prefers to use the ordinance prepared by Silver. It was moved by Ducat and seconded by Awful to approve the ordinance establishing the reimbursement of all travel, meal, and lodging expenses of officers and employees in the county of Iroquois, Illinois, pending State's Attorney Jim Devine's approval. A roll call vote was taken, that motion carried. Discussion and action on the county personnel manual was tabled until next month. Scheer noted appointments will be made at the county board meeting. There was no correspondence to be reviewed with the committee. There were no claims submitted for approval. There was no old business. There was no new business. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Alt and seconded by Awful to adjourn at 10:23 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote. All of this is respectfully submitted, signed by all members present, and I move for the adoption of the report. Do I have a second, Mrs. Awful? Are there any questions or comments regarding this report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Bentz,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Ducat,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Hughes, McGinnis,
Yes.
McTaggart,
Yes.
Awful,
Yes.
Sure,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Alt, and Barron's.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, management services,
Wait, we
Mr.
need to have a separate motion for that ordinance,
Oh,
just to
excuse
make
me.
sure it had a first and second without a
Sleep at the
pending.
switch. The ordinance that was just discussed in the report, we need a separate motion to approve that. I think there's a copy of the ordinance that was presented in your packet this morning, so. Do we have a motion, Mrs. Crowe? Seconded by Mr. Williams. Do we have any questions or comments about the ordinance? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Bowers?
Yes.
Crowe?
Yes.
Ducat?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. McGinnis?
Yes.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Awful?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Whitlow?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Barron's?
Yes.
Dents?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, now, Management Services Committee, Mr. Barron's.
Mr. Chairman and members of the county board, the committee to whom was referred management services would beg leave to submit the following report on matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on February 6, 2023 at 9 a.m. Members present, Barron's, Bowers, Dents, Crowe, and Zumwalt. Also present, County Board Chairman John Scher, Finance Manager Jill Johnson, Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake, Coroner Bill Cheatham, and ETS Director Eric Raymond. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Donna Crowe and seconded by John Zumwalt to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake's report included the following. Drake provided an update on the courthouse elevator, stating TK Elevator began working on the elevator 2 weeks ago. Everything is going well so far. Drake said all the hydraulic, approximately 70 pounds, was leaking into the shaft. Drake spoke with Thad Eshelman with Soil and Water about purchasing trees. Mr. Eshelman did a survey of the tree line and tested soil types at the Administrative Center. Based upon his recommendations, Drake ordered 50 trees with a mix of white pines, Norway spruce, and blue spruce. Cost was approximately $200. Inspections include Metro Power servicing all 3 generators, and Getz will be coming to recertify all fire extinguishers. Drake asked for direction on the air conditioning unit at the Animal Control Building. Management Chairman Barron's suggested Drake contact the vendor and get on their schedule to look into the matter. During the month of March, Drake said he typically handles the spring cleanup before mowing season begins. Discussion on the county farm included Zumwalt informing the committee he spoke with Dave Johnson regarding the tiling project. Barron's also noted the annual rent checks from Walker Farms was received in the amount of $151,038.60. Zumwalt presented a resolution in support of Iroquois County Agriculture to be approved and forwarded to the county board for final approval. Once approved, Zumwalt would like to see the resolution forwarded to the governor and our state representatives. Crowe noted a recent article states that Iroquois County is second in the nation in corn production. County Board Chairman John Scher added that the committee would like the resolution sent to the governor and state representatives. Resolution will need to be modified stating as such. It is moved by Zumwalt and seconded by Crowe to send the resolution in support of Iroquois County Agriculture to the county board with modifications, adding the recipients of the resolution and modifications made by county clerk Grant Huber as necessary. Motion carried by a voice vote. County Chairman Scher reported the Animal Control Building, stating he continues to work on gathering information for flood proofing the building. An offer was extended to the property owner for the building. The county has expressed an interest in furthermore. Scher submitted a letter purchase agreement and 3 comparable to the property owner on Friday, March 3rd, with the offering expiring Friday, March 10th. The property owner responded to Scher stating any counteroffers will not allow either party to reach an agreement at this time. Based upon that conversation, Scher suggested the committee begin searching for another location. Crowe mentioned a building in the business district of Milford and said she would make an informal inquiry. Mitchell Benz suggested looking into the Copper Pot building that is currently up for sale. Coroner Bill Cheatham also mentioned the former eye clinic building on 8th Street is for sale. Barron's asked the committee members to direct all recommendations to Sherb. In regards to animal control building, Finance Manager Jill Johnson said Drake will be assisting her with locating contractors for the outdoor fencing. Johnson is also looking into the purchase 2 large indoor kennels. Discussion was held on bid letting for fertilizer for the county farm, natural gas, and waste disposal. It is moved by Zumwalt and second by Benz to request bids for fertilizer, natural gas, and waste disposal. Roll call vote was taken, motion carried. The committee reviewed the Smart Watt Centrica loan progression spreadsheet provided by Johnson. The outstanding balance remaining is $407,372.44. Smart Watt Centrica savings verified report shows a savings of $148,104 over the past 3 years. Additional payments can be made in 2026. Committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Paul Bowers and seconded by Benz to pay the claims subject to county board approval. The roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. There was no old business. There was no new business. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Zumwalt and seconded by Bowers to adjourn at 9:52 a.m. Motion carried, all of which is respectfully submitted, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the management committee report, seconded by Mr. Hughes. Are there any questions or comments regarding the report? Mr. Bowers?
Shouldn't it be March 6th instead of February 6th in the first beginning?
I think it should be. We'll make that correction. Mr. McTaggart?
I talked with Lyle a little bit before the meeting, but with regards to the morgue idea, I personally, and I know I'm not in the management committee, but I just feel like this feels like one of these things that we're seeking after just because there's money in the ARPA committee. And I don't remember ever hearing of this being a major issue until the ARPA money showed up. And it's just going to be a large ongoing expense with a large outlay to even make it happen. And I guess I just ask, and I think Lyle answered my question before, but just for everyone else's sake, but have we talked, and if not, why? Have we spoken with IMH about the cooler that's in the basement, what it would take to fix the elevator if that's indeed the problem, why that's not a viable option? Have we spoken with NAP, since they've been graciously working with the county on many of these issues over the years, to get their specific, hey, we don't want to do this anymore, or we have no intention of this, or whatever their official statement is? It just seems like we're trying to find reasons to spend the money, and maybe there's a very good reason, but if I understood right last month when we kind of spoke about this, there's not all that many bodies that go into this facility on a given year, and I get it's important that we have a way to deal with that, but I guess what other options do we have? I know in the past we've had to go to Kankakee County when NAP was full, and there's different things that have had to be done. And maybe my understanding is incorrect, but if it's a fairly infrequent thing, maybe that's a viable option, and we need to go talk to them. That would be a third person we could go talk to about, hey, can we have an arrangement with you? And I get that's not the most convenient place to go to, but on the other hand, if it's a fairly rare thing, and maybe I'm wrong about that, maybe it's our best option that doesn't create a property that has to be insured and electricity and ongoing expenses for the rest of time. And maybe all those things were already evaluated and looked at within the management committee, but I might have missed that.
You want to answer that? You want me to answer?
You can answer.
I guess the first premise that you brought up about if it's needed or not, and we've been utilizing NAP ever since we're not able to utilize the hospital anymore. And NAP does not want us to be there. That they claim that they need the space sometimes, that it's an inconvenience. I believe they're gonna start are already charging us for any time we do have a body there, which isn't, the charge isn't really the problem, it's just a further indication of the fact that they don't want us to be doing that anymore. And that's really what brought this up about, it wasn't necessarily the availability of ARPA money. I think the two arrived coincidentally. But we had hopes when we purchased the animal control building that we might be able to combine both there. And I still think that were it not in the floodplain would be something that would be a very good solution. But in any event, the coroner does not want to go in the floodplain, and I know there are board members that don't support that either, so.
Isn't this, and I don't know my geography of Watseka very well, isn't this eye clinic that Bill Cheatham himself brought up as a potential place, isn't it in the floodplain? Someone mentioned to me?
That I don't know. I haven't investigated that site, so
A lot of this just doesn't make sense on the surface.
yeah, Mr. Geiger, you,
I believe it is in the floodplain, that's why they left. Second thing is, I don't think the hospital's ever been formally discussed at the board level why they can't consider looking into using the coolers there or updating them, whatever needs to be done. But it might be worth a conversation.
I think what I was told is that one of the main problems at the hospital is the function of the elevator.
Could be, but I'm willing to revisit it if we could.
I mean, to me, on the surface, fixing the elevator, as we found with the courthouse, rather than replacing the elevator, getting it fixed and things, was significantly cheaper. It has to be a lot cheaper than having a separate building with a separate electrical bill and a separate insurance.
Yeah, I'm also not sure about the condition of the cooler that's at the hospital. I think it's very old, and I really don't know.
Well, and I guess
Coroner knows the answer to that part better than I do, but.
I just feel, I would just close my comments by, it seems like there's a lot of these things that I would hope we would look into before we're out making bids on property, because there might be some other options, even, sounds like there's some other options out there that haven't been investigated.
Well, I'm not trying to dodge your question either, because I think it's very important. On the other hand, my involvement has been more trying to assist the management committee in solving the problems. Mrs. Crowe?
I believe that the cooler that's at the hospital, and this is from Bill, was the cooler that used to be at the highway department. I think it belongs to the county. And it's very old. It dates back to when Phyllis Jamison was the queen. So that was like back in the 1980s, late 70s. So that's one thing, and there is a problem with that. The other problem that we have with NAPS, we have with the morgue, using the morgue in Kankakee, and we have some, they might not happen often, and it's indelicate, but we have some special cases. We deal with some decomp situations that are unpleasant. MAPS don't want to be part of that. There are times where we get bodies off of 57, and this is, I'm repeating Bill Cheatham's, what he's told us, that they can't find next of kin for. We have to hold those bodies by law, I think, for 30 days, I believe is what he told us. And that becomes inconvenient for NAPS. The issue of a liability in the event of a fire or other catastrophe at NAPS has come into question. And we had a situation where we had a body which no one wanted, and finally he had to take it to Champaign County under very special circumstances. And I realize what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, but there comes a time where a county just needs to deal with their business themselves. And if there were, I asked about an ARPA award that we gave to I don't know how to say, well, actually, it was to Mavis. I asked them if there might be a corner in that building in Crescent City. They're already using that building. They've got it up and running. They're having classes. There's no extra room in it. So I think we have explored that. We're just not out looking at buildings. We have explored options.
I guess to the point of the, thanks for explaining that. The hospital, I get that the cooler might be old, the elevator might be broken, but we need a cooler for whatever the building this is. And again, I would imagine the elevator would be cheaper than owning a building. So I guess my first earlier point I made is that while all these things may be colliding coincidentally at the same time, if there was no ARPA money, we wouldn't be looking at becoming completely self-sufficient in those things. And in the event we have these horrific, I think I know about the incident that you're talking about that had to go to Champaign County. I'd have a leery suspicion we'd have to find some special circumstances for any incident that would, or special way of dealing with it in situations like that, maybe under any circumstances, even our own building, because it's so unique. Thankfully, they're unique and probably, Lord willing, don't happen but once a decade. But I just,
I would be interested in knowing what the cost of the repair at the hospital would be versus, because I would suspect that's gonna be a very expensive thing. If you just, do you know that? Yeah?
I haven't heard this. I've been in both elevators, and I know I'm struggling, but I've been wrong before this week.
Well, it's the elevator that he is able to take a body in to avoid the public. You know, so is it a service elevator or a freight elevator? But he doesn't, he stays away from the general public there.
I'll be happy to look into all these topics, and I can report to the management meeting at the next committee meeting if you want.
And I don't know if it's actually an issue with the elevator itself, but it was something with some type of remodeling that then made access difficult or impossible.
You might call Bill and ask him what he's talking about
Yeah,
specifically.
I'll find out on the hospital side if that's fair, because I don't think they have any kind of agenda or, we'll just try to get them to work with us.
I guess one of the questions associated with the hospital is, what's their process or procedure right now when someone passes away in the hospital? Are they using that old cooler in the basement, or are they immediately removing the body from the hospital to a nap or someplace?
In my experience, that's what takes place, that the funeral home comes rather quickly, and they.
So they're not using the cooler at all?
In my circumstances, they never did, and that's been 3 or 4 circumstances. But I don't know about people that are out of town and that. I can look into that, that question also.
Well, I think the bottom line to everything that's happened recently is we're back at square one, so any ideas or whatever that anyone has are certainly welcome.
I'll report back to the management committee at their next meeting, and as far as what.
Or you can even let me know ahead of time if there's something that needs to be investigated. I'll be happy to do that too.
I'll write it down, yes, sir.
Mr. Williams?
Okay, biohazard, there's certain things you can't bring into the hospital. So if you got the rare body that's be one of the circumstances. So pretty much the hospital would be out as far as your go-to place for the rare times when the county has something to deal with. I would suggest you ask the hospital that before you go through all the evaluation of the 40-year-old.
I think the point is that, like I said a couple times, Lord willing, this is a probably once in 25-year event, and if we have to contact Champaign County to help us deal with that, if they have the facility that is for biohazards, or if it had to go to Springfield, I guess, or wherever we need to go. There's facilities in this state that can help in those situations, and thankfully those don't happen on a day-to-day basis. But it's important to know, yeah,
County
what is allowed and what isn't.
responsibility, and it's an isolated facility.
Mr. Zumwalt?
Another part we're not considering too is that the people, when they get maybe killed on 57, people from Chicago need to come down and identify the body, and I'm not sure hospital basement would be the right setting for that. Another part to think about.
And Mr. Watts?
Is there any response by Mr. Caper to the offer that the county made for this building?
Yes, he declined the offer. He said that the gap between our offer and his asking price was too great for him to consider making a counteroffer. So, I have to say that I think I discussed the offer thoroughly with the management committee. We were all in agreement that it was a very fair offer, probably above market value of the property, but he still declined, so. Okay, is there any other questions or comments on that part of it? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please? This is for the report, so.
Crowe,
Yes.
Ducat,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
McTaggart,
Yes.
Awful, Sure,
Yes,
Watts,
Yes.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Alt, Barron's,
Yes.
Bent,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
now we have discussion and action on the resolution in support of Iroquois County agriculture. There should be a copy of this resolution included amongst your packet this morning. Maybe we'll begin it with seeking a motion to approve the resolution. Mr. Bowers, is there a second?
I'll say.
Mr. Zumwalt. Now we can enter into discussion. Are there any questions or comments about the resolution? I think it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory.
I just had a comment. I think we were all pretty surprised this last week when the National Ag Statistics Service came out with Iroquois County is second in the nation in corn production. And I think in bringing this resolution to the board, I think we're reaffirming our commitment to ag in Iroquois County. And I think that the 38% listed in here is probably, as far as people who are employed by the county, is kind of low, so that's what the Farm Bureau thinks. So I think it's good just to revisit this.
What was our position in the production of soybeans?
It was, what was it, 4? Yeah,
So we're ranking pretty high in both categories.
right.
I think that says a lot, really. It's a big county, but it still says a lot.
In the nation.
Yeah, right. If there's no further discussion or comments, would you call the roll, please?
Ducat,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Taggart,
Yes.
Awful, Sure,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Alt,
Yes.
Barron's,
Yes.
Bent,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
and Crowe.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, ARPA Committee, Mr. Ducat.
Mr. Chairman, members of the county board, the committee to whom was referred the American Rescue Plan Act, beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Ministerial Center on March 6, 2023 at 10:05 a.m. Members present were Ducat, Crowe, Awful, and Sure. Also present, Finance Manager Jill Johnson, County Board Member Mitchell Bentz, ETS Director Eric Raymond, Pat Neal, and Greg Nealing with a natural eye, and Todd and Angie Arsenault with Beaverville. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Barb Awful and seconded by Donna Crowe to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. The committee began the review of the ARPA applications as follows. Number 60, Natural High. Pat Neal with a Natural High provided the committee with a listing of expenses they plan to pay off if their application is approved, totaling $14,609. Neal stated that their revenue comes solely from free will donations. It was moved by Sure and seconded by Crowe to adopt a resolution awarding $5,360 to a Natural High. A roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. Sure noted this amount will pay off the balance of their vehicle loan, vehicle and sound equipment insurance, equipment van, annual license fee, and the cost of the air conditioning, repair for the van. Neil expressed her gratitude for the funds given to a natural high. Application number 99, Watsika Park District. Watsika Park District is requesting $200,000 for an addition to the facility for added child care services. The committee requested a representative be present at the next meeting and quotes for the construction. Application number 118, Prairie Dell Church. Prairie Dell Church is requesting $6,800 for restoration and repairs for the steeple. Crow added the church has a historical designation and is not a practicing church. The committee chose to table action on the application until quotes are received and a representative can be present. Application number 120, Township of Beaverville. Todd and Angie Arsenault gave an update of their findings of filing a claim with the vendor's bonding company stating the vendor would have to be bonded in Iroquois County. They continue to work with the state's attorney, Jim Devine, regarding the theft. Sure question if the additional money is awarded and the Township of Beaverville is able to recover funds, what is the next step? Iroquois County isn't able to take the money back at that point. Sure also said if the state's attorney is pursuing the matter, he must have some hope of recovering funds. Crow voiced her opinion on paying for a project twice. And Finance Manager Jill Johnson stated there may be an issue when funds are reported twice for the same project. While this is an unfortunate event, funding totals $108,993 have already been awarded to the Township of Beaverville. It was moved by Duquette and seconded by Awful to adopt the resolution awarding $16,256.62 to the Township of Beaverville. A roll call vote was taken. Duquette, aye. All aye. Crow, nay. Awful, nay. Sure, aye. Motion carried. The committee began discussion on hazard pay for Iroquois County employees. Applications have been submitted from many department heads for hazard pay. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Crow to move into executive session at 11:05 a.m. under 5 ILCS 120-1-C-1. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. A roll call vote was taken. Duquette, nay. Alt, nay. Crow, aye. Awful, aye. Sure, nay. Motion failed. Last month, paperwork was given to the committee to establish hazard pay for employees. The amounts were $1,000 for full-time employees and $500 for part-time employees. The date range to qualify for hazard pay is March 10th, 2020 through May 7th, 2022. The sample hazard pay resolution and spreadsheet includes 73 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees. Sure said he recalls the committee making the decision to complete the hazard pay at the end of the application process. Duquette said he would like to see a decision made after telecommunications negotiations, but before ASME negotiations. It was also communicated to FOP and ASME that a decision would be made at the end of the application process. The committee discussed the remaining ARPA fund balance and items that are earmarked by the committee members. Johnson stated the remaining balance is $1,038,745.32. And this does not include earmarked items. Per the committee, earmarked items total approximately $300,000. Johnson reviewed the remaining applications. Next month, the committee will review applications for Watsika Park District, Richland Township, Prairie Dell Church, Voiles Construction, Designer Homes, and Schaumburg's Fine Trim. Hazard pay will remain on the agenda until further notice. There is no old business, there was no new business. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Alt and seconded by Awful to adjourn 11:37 a.m. Motion carried by voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted and asked for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the ARPA committee report. Is there a second? Mrs. Awful. Are there any questions or comments regarding the report? Mrs. Crowe?
On page 2, in regards to the hazard pay, where it says last month paperwork was given to the committee, the amounts were $1,500. Is that talking about the resolution that was handed out in February at the meeting? Because those amounts were not what was on the resolution.
You're correct, they weren't, but what was said in the meeting was 1,500 would be fine.
In the February meeting or the March meeting?
In the
March, I think.
March, yeah.
Well, I think it should say what was on the paperwork that was handed out. So what was said in the committee meeting is one thing, but what was on the paperwork was 1,500. So that's what that sentence seems to say.
You want that sentence amended to say $1,500
I
then?
wanted to reflect what the paperwork that was handed out as used for accuracy.
So is it 1,500 for all employees?
For full-time, and quite honestly, I don't remember what
I don't think there was anything for part-timers, I think.
I don't have it in front of me.
1,500 for full-time and 500 for part-time.
Okay, that's what it said on the paperwork that was handed out.
Okay.
But that would change the rest.
Correct.
Well, then, you know, we could work with that in there that we changed it, but that's what the paperwork says that was handed out.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments? Mr. Watts?
So I listened to you read this application 120 Township of Beaverville. I've read it several times, but I really don't understand what's going on there. Could you give a brief synopsis of what,
They gave partial payment to a gentleman, and he took the money and ran. He did this through the FBI, and we had no way of going back after FBI either because he was a subcontractor, and he didn't do it just to them, he did it to, Jim, I apologize for
No,
putting you
you're
on.
accurate, and I can follow up a little bit on that as well, Paul. We are going to be filing criminal action against this individual who's currently being held in Indiana on similar charges. As Paul said, this has been a serial theft by deception by this individual. Prospects of getting that money back are not great, so my pursuit is for punishment, not for necessarily restitution, realistically. So, I mean, we'll pursue restitution, but it's not likely to happen. The money's gone. And people like this don't put that money in a savings account. It is spent, so it's not likely to be recovered.
Any other questions or comments? Mr.
So what is the
Zumo?
money- Mr. Chairman, so what is the money we're giving to them for? What is it for? Capital improvements?
For the garage doors to finish up, to pay for them.
They didn't get them done because they were screwed.
The garage door, the doors that they ended up getting cost more money than what the gentleman in Indiana had priced them. So there's making up for that, but the money, the man in Indiana was only giving a partial payment. So there was still some money between what we originally gave him and the partial payment. So that figured into the accounting that was done here as to how we came up with the number that we did.
It just seems like that we ought to wait till this thing plays out with Mr. Devine before we give any more money towards it. Maybe there might be a possibility of recovery, but we don't know. Just my thoughts.
Mrs. Crowe?
I think it's a note that the project is complete, they do have doors and it's done.
Well, we have a lot of, I think we should do this and do that, unless somebody wants to make a motion. We're either gonna continue with what we did or we're gonna make a change.
Your committee did due diligence on it. Do you feel this is the right thing to do?
This is to finish a project that we started with them, we want to finish with them. It's just like everything else I've done throughout the county. We diversify it to help every single person out, and something like this, it helps out a majority of the people in that area.
I personally voted it down mainly because, and it's unfortunate that it happened to them, but people, you know, get screwed sometimes and you don't have someone to pay for it. And I just voted it down for that reason. It's unfortunate it happened, but how I look at it. You make it.
as I said a few minutes ago, we have a lot of different opinions on this matter, but we're either gonna have to say we wanna make a change or we're gonna continue on with what the committee did, so.
Is there a motion
I have not heard
on
one.
today's agenda?
Is what?
Isn't there a motion on today's agenda to approve a resolution?
Yes.
So there is a motion on the floor. Or there will be.
The motion that's on the floor is approving the report, okay?
Which will approve the
That
resolution.
which will improve the resolutions for both. If somebody wants to make a motion to change that, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not hearing any motion, so.
Remove it from context and do that. You have to remove it.
I guess in the absence of a motion, the clerk will call the roll.
Geiger,
You're voting on the report right now.
We're
you're
voting on the report,
which
yes.
approves the resolutions as well.
Sometimes we have to vote separate on the resolution.
It depends on how they,
Sometimes we
it
don't.
depends on how they move move to approve it in the committee. If the committee makes an actual motion or, then it would approve through the report. If the committee makes a recommendation to send it to the board, then that's when you need a new motion. Or if the committee moves to have the state's attorney look at the resolution or ordinance.
I'm sorry, Brian, there were like 3 conversations going on and I need to ask you to repeat that, but I could not hear you.
Sure, I'm sorry. The way the board has always made their motions, in committee, if you make a motion in committee and it's a motion to approve, then approving it through the committee report approves the resolutions or the action that's going to take place. If you make a recommendation to approve something that goes to the board, or if you make a motion to approve something pending Jim Devine's approval, then getting a definite motion to approve those is what we need at the board meetings. That's how those motions.
Not to nitpick, but then why do we vote on the claims the second time after we approve them in the committees?
The committee
Because
claims are approved.
You are
sent to
spending
the
money.
board.
So is this.
I know, I agree.
It's the same thing. That was why I asked the question in the beginning. is
Yeah.
You're approving sending the claims to the county board for final
I
approval.
don't think that's how we work the motion.
So you're approving the claims, but that's approving this payment for ARPA. I mean, this isn't approving the check. You're approving the check after Jill writes it. Or approving her to write it. And then you approve the claims and then, I assume there's a claim for these, right, Jill? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, until I get the signed resolutions from Brian's office, then I'll make out the award, contract and then cut the check and let the entities know that they can pick up their pay.
Does everybody understand now where we're at? We're voting to approve the report, which will include the minutes, the 2 motions that were made to approve resolutions.
And you have no motion or second, is that correct?
It's been moved and seconded, yes.
Okay, you get that, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, Geiger,
No.
Hughes,
I'll vote no, I think, on it.
okay, McGinnis,
Yes.
McTaggart,
Abstain.
Awful,
No.
Sure,
Yes.
Watts,
No.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zumwalt, Alt,
Yes.
Barron's,
Yes.
Bentz,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Crow,
No,
and Ducat.
Yes.
Motion carried 10 to 5, 1 abstain.
Okay. We'll move on to the Health Committee, Mrs. Awful.
Mr. Chairman and members of the county board, your committee to whom was referred health, but beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on March 7, 2023 at 9 a.m. Members present were Awful, Ducat, Geiger, Hughes, and Whitlow. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, Interim ICPHD Administrator Eric Cece, and Finance Manager Jill Johnson. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Steve Hughes and seconded by Paul Ducat to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Jed Whitlow and seconded by Doug Geiger to pay the claims subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. There were no public comments. Finance Manager Jill Johnson reported the registration deposit for February was $3,745. More than 5,000 registration due notices were mailed over the past couple of days. There are 4 cases currently open with 1 dog waiting for replacement, 1 well check, 1 bite report, and 3 dogs picked up this morning from an accident. The animal control officers closed 35 cases in February. The closed cases consisted of 15 dogs running loose, 2 closed bite reports, 7 abandonment cases, 5 well checks, 2 aggressive dogs, 2 possible dog thefts, 1 accident pickup, and 1 skunk. The skunk tested negative for rabies. Johnson explained animal control doesn't typically handle wild animal cases such as the skunk reported. An individual contacted the health department with concerns because of a contact with the skunk, and the health department requested the skunk be tested. Interim ICPHD Administrator Eric Cece distributed a monthly summary report of programs. Cece noted a new line item in environmental health for farmers market inspections. There were 3 openings for the month. There were 3 food complaints, 1 of which was resolved before the health department arrived. There were 3 unsatisfactory water samples. Also in environmental health, Cece reported a new associate sanitarian has been hired. Community health reported 3 COVID-19 outbreaks within long-term care facilities. Reportable communicable disease investigations included 1 influenza invasive investigation, 1 hepatitis C confirmed case, 1 histoplasmosis confirmed case, and 1 negative rabies result. An international travel consult was done. Community outreach included 2 Narcan training events and an Alzheimer's presentation. Senior Services continues with their program for individuals aged 60 and older. CC said grocery shopping for this program has decreased. The program ends on June 30th. CC reported 2 resignations, the Director of Senior Services and the Financial Officer in the Administration Office. Also, D. Schiffer retired as of February 28th. Lastly, there's a new vaccination grant available to the Health Department through the Illinois Department of Public Health. CC intends on applying for a $100,000 grant. There was no old business, there was no new business, as there was no further business to come before the committee. It was moved by Ducat and seconded by Geiger to adjourn at 9:15 a.m. Motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the Health Committee report. Is there a second? Mr. Williams. Are there any questions or comments regarding the report? Mr. McTaggart?
Could I ask from health, since you're on the health committee board, how many candidates you guys interviewed or how that process went?
We interviewed, let's see, there was 6 or 7 of them. And how did the process go? We've discussed it in executive order.
Okay.
Yep. I can't say any more about it.
When is the time frame for hiring that?
I think it was like May. I'm not real sure.
Are there any other questions or comments about the report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Hughes,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
McTaggart,
Yes.
Awful, Schur,
Yes.
Watts, Whitlow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Alt,
Yes.
Barron's,
Yes.
Bentz,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Crow, Ducat,
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Carried.
All right, Tax Planning and Zoning Committee, Mr. Ducat.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board of Committee to whom is referred tax zoning would beg that Lee submit the following report on the matters before them. The committee met at the Administrative Center on March 7, 2023 at 9:34 a.m. Member present, Ducat, Alpha, Geiger, Hughes, and Whitlow. Also present, County Board Chairman John Scher, Finance Manager Jill Johnson, Treasurer Kurt Alberts, County Clerk Brian Suver, Supervisor for Assessments Bob Yergler, Planning and Zoning Administrator Julie Feller, Assessment Deputy Clerk Danielle Valmer, EMA Director Eric Stacy, and Lodi Township Assessor Jim Sherrill. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Hughes to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Geiger to pay the claims, accept the annual judge's salary reimbursement, subject to county board approval. The annual judge's salary reimbursement claim will be forwarded to the Judicial and Public Safety Committee for approval. A roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. There was no public comments. Lodi Township Assessor Jim Sherrill introduced himself to the committee and provided information on his background. Mr. Sherrill said his first major job at Illinois Crop Improvement Association was to convert their paper record system to a computer-assisted record system. In 2021, he was elected Lodi Township Assessor, and their county assessment records were still being kept on paper. Mr. Sherrill requested and received permission from the Lodi Township Board and Supervisor of Assessment Bob Yergler to take these records to a computer-assisted system. Mr. Sherrill noted that the one shortfall of the system is that it cannot be uploaded to the DevNet software system used by the assessment office. In the fall of 2022, Yergler informed property owners that there would be a special equalization assessment that would affect taxes payable in the summer of 2023. The equalizations range from 17 to 24% across the county. Yergler also stated it was likely that there would be another increase announced in the fall of 2023. Yergler informed Sherrill that other counties on a computer-assisted mass assessment program did not have to share such harsh news with their property owners. The CAMA system allows administrators to gradually raise or lower assessment values to bring their properties closer to the desired one-third sales value. Mr. Sherrill sees a need for the CAMA system in Iroquois County and has the past experience to put it in place. He is forming a special business entity called Property Card Incorporated to achieve this job. With the company being locally owned, Mr. Sherrill said he would be able to do the work cheaper and more efficiently than an outside entity. Mr. Sherrill noted several budget-related reasons Iroquois County should have the CAMA system, which includes taxpayer benefits and making county government more efficient. A bid was provided at $115 per property. The cost included 12,960 residential properties, 1,694 farmsteads, 1,637 businesses, and 40 large corporations, totaling 16,332 properties. By spreading the cost over 60 months, the monthly fee payable to the Property Card Incorporated would be $31,000 for the remainder figured at the end based upon the actual number of properties. Township boards should be favorable to this program as it would put better assessment data in the hands of the county office and get the properties to a current assessment status. Townships could also share in this cost over 5 years. Yergler stated he is in favor of the CAMA system and believes the assessment office could run more efficiently with this program. Taxing and Zoning Chairman Ducat recommended an ARPA application be submitted to fund some of the project. County Board Chairman Scher added that each township would need to be visited and presented the information in order to find out their interest and support. Finance Manager Jill Johnson asked the committee to revisit the matter next month. The committee appears to be moving forward without a set plan in place. The department heads gave their monthly reports. County Clerk Brian Suver reported statements of economic interest were mailed March 3rd last month. Suver spoke to the committee about the issues with recording fees increasing due to the passage of a bill that will increase the amount collected for rental housing support surcharge. Suver said a trailer bill is out to correct the $1 in question she spoke about last month. Hopefully the trailer bill will be passed soon, so notice of the increase can be given. Then the board will be able to pass an ordinance to raise the recording fees with an additional amount collected for rental housing surcharge support surcharge. Suver also reported that the office is conducting the consolidated election, and while it has the lowest turnout for an election, it is the most challenging for our office. There are 101 different ballot styles for this election due to all the smaller units of government with positions up for election. Approximately 1,150 permanent vote by mail ballots were mailed April 23rd. Vote by mail judges are convening on Tuesdays and Thursdays to confirm signatures on the vote by mail ballots once they are returned. The ballot will be placed into a ballot box to be tabulated on election night. Iroquois County has been chosen by the State Board of Elections for a test of our election equipment this year. The last time our equipment was tested by the State Board was approximately 2010. Suver said there is a test performed on all devices that will be used in the election. A public test will also be performed by the clerk's office after the testing by SBE. The SBE testing will take place on March 17th to run and upload ballots and information as it is done on election day. Suver informed the committee of a vacancy in her office. Lastly, Suver reported on tax extensions stating everything is inputted and we've received the assessments for pollution and state railroad. It will now be a waiting game until assessment is finalized and the final multiplier is received from the Department of Revenue. Treasurer Kurt Albers reported mobile homes bills will be mailed out this week and will be due the second week of May. DevNet will be on site to assist with the process due to having new hires in the treasurer's office. Also, beginning this year, mobile homes will be listed in the sales tax. The tax sale, sorry. Supervisor assessment, Bob Yergler reported the assessment office is working on finalizing board review. Yergler introduced Deputy Clerk Daniel Vollmer to the committee. Vollmer has expressed interest in the supervisor assessment positions when Yergler retires. She has a couple more classes to complete within the next few months, and then will take the supervisor assessment exam. An employee in the assessment office was terminated during their probationary period, and there is now a vacancy in the office. Yergler was also introduced planning and zoning administrator Judy Feller. There will be 2 zoning boards of appeal hearings at the end of this month. One is for conditional use of a wedding venue, and the other is a variance for a setback on a property line. Suver provided the committee with a monthly resolution list showing one parcel being sold by the county trustee at the base price of $807. The parcel is an improvement on a right-of-way in Ashcombe. It was moved by Geiger, second by Awful, to approve the resolution approving the sale of property to Jeffrey Hall. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. Continued discussion was held on Public Act 102-1123. Duquette said he reached out to UCCI about a resolution opposing the act. At this time, Oakland County is the only county that opposed the act prior to the law being made. There was no pending lawsuits at this time. Sure added that he is not aware of others opposing the law either. However, this is a law that we have to comply by May 27th. He said the committee needs to begin the process of reviewing the ordinances to get them in compliance. The changes do not have to be approved until the May meeting, and perhaps changes will have occurred by then. Sure also stated State's Attorney Jim Devine doesn't see a need for a public hearing since the ordinance changes are due to a change in law. The committee scheduled an additional meeting to be held April 3rd at 11 a.m. to begin the review of the ordinances. There was no old business, there was no new business. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Awful and seconded by Hughes to adjourn at 10:54 a.m. Motion carried by voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted and asked for its adoption.
A motion on the floor to approve the tax planning committee report. Is there a second? Mr. Geiger. Are there any questions or comments about the report? My goodness. Seeing none, clerk will call the roll, please.
McGinnis.
Yep.
McTaggart.
Yes.
Awful.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Zumwalt.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Behrens.
Yes.
Bentz.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Ducat.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
And Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, then next we have a discussion and action on the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, can I follow up with one thing on that report? The idea of coming up with converting our real estate to some sort of a computer-assisted model would be something I think the county should really look into. I don't know for sure all the costs, but having a card system that's subject to any type of natural catastrophe is not, I think, a wise thing. I would wonder if we might want to save some of the ARPA money to help fund this project, or at least go slow in moving forward with ARPA spending so we can get some figures back to the whole board on what this project might cost. That paves the way to further discussion.
Yeah, and as Mr. Yergler had mentioned that day in the meeting, that all of our documents are on paper, and if there were a fire or something, we'd be in big trouble. So I think it's important.
Okay, Mrs. Crowe?
Does anyone have a ballpark figure of what we might be talking about? I mean,
This proposal comes out to about 1.8 million. You take 115 times the number of parcels in some township.
that's
We just bought 2 garage doors though. And bottom line, as far as getting townships involved, we have a huge vacancy problem in the county now. We have 13 assessment districts and 7 vacancies. Now, some of them districts are covered by contract assessors, but the job isn't getting done efficiently and correctly. And after this next assessment cycle, we'll be down to 12 assessment cycles because Beaverville and Heffinal have to join because of lack of population with another multi-township, so it'll be one district. And then that assessor is currently at Martin, Beaver, and Concord is retiring, and there might be another assessor that's also going to hang it up. So now you may have 12 districts with 9 or 12, 10 vacancies. So I think the townships would be, this is a good time to hit the townships and have, what they were willing to pony up to help the situation. It's not cheap, I'm not gonna deny that in any stretch of the form. But if we go to an outside firm to do it, there's outside companies that do this, they're over $200 to $300 a parcel. But in retrospect, if there, God forbid, something would happen to my west wall, that's a $4 million problem. And I don't know what our insurance covers on that as far as repair or cleanup, but it would have to be done quickly and a lot of manpower. And that's gonna be
How would it be maintained after it's initially done?
That would be the question. There would be, with the vacancy issue at the township level, I would think that you could actually get, if this company still would exist, they could possibly do, data collection off of building permits out in the assessment districts, funnel the information to the county, and then it would be downloaded directly onto DevNet through the CAMA system, and then values would be generated off that cost system that's developed at the county level. Now, there might be some, and then obviously the traditional way is the current assessors, whoever they are, would be, I would require, won't be me anymore, but I would recommend that they be required by the county to have an adaptable system in place at their level so they can download information to the county off a thumb drive or any viable mode of, or even over the internet, whether, area-wise blessing and all that good stuff. But yeah, we need to get into the 21st century. It makes assessment a lot easier and more accurate. But like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that it's not expensive to do.
I think as the report indicated, this was an initial presentation by Mr. Sherrill, and the committee will be formulating a plan of action as we proceed and determining the best way for us to and see if we can afford this, to see how all of it's gonna come together. That's what the committee's gonna be working on, so.
Could that be a search for grant money to help?
That could be a part of it, yes. But this will all be reported on further next month after the committee's had an opportunity to look it all over, think about it. so forth, so.
We're talking, put a face with a name, this is Julie Feller, she's the new zoning administrator.
Okay, we've approved the report. Now we need to do discussion and action on the resolution opposing Public Act 102-1123.
I'll make a motion, we approve, Public Act 102-1123.
Okay, Mr. Hughes, second.
No, I wasn't gonna second. I was gonna say with, Mr. Devine is here, have we consulted with our state's attorney regarding the way that legislation reads is the county shall. So what is the penalty if we don't change our zoning to?
You're talking about two different things.
Yeah, I know.
Right now, we're considering the resolution opposing it. Let's get that taken care of first, so,
We need a second. You're gonna
yes.
second?
I'll second.
Okay,
I'll second the resolution.
All right, Mr. Hughes will second it.
okay.
Now we can discuss it. It's reported in the minutes that I said that I was not aware of any other counties doing any lawsuits. On Thursday, I was at a meeting with some other county board chairman, and the county board chairman from Douglas County told me that he believes there's down in his area, which is south of Champaign, that there's some activity associated in trying to put some kind of a lawsuit together. So I don't know how far you can take that kind of information, but there may be a faint ray of hope on the horizon. The other thing is that this resolution is somewhat symbolic in nature because it isn't going to change anything, but I think it puts us county on record as opposing what's being done in Springfield. And to me, I think that's important that we do that, so. Does anyone else have any comments or questions that they might want to make on this resolution? Seeing not, we'll call the roll, please.
McTaggart,
Yes.
Awful,
Yes.
Sure,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Alt,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Bent,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Ducat,
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
and McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Judicial and Public Safety Committee. Mr. Whitlow.
Mr. Chairman, members of the county board, your committee to whom is referred, Judicial and Public Safety, would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the courthouse on March 8, 2023 at 3 p.m. Members present were Whitlow, Hughes, Watts, and Williams. Mitchell Benz was absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schuer, Sheriff Clint Brzee, Coroner Bill Cheatham, Probation Supervisor Barb King, and ETS Director Eric Raymond. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Steve Hughes and seconded by Raymond Williams to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. Sheriff Clint Brzee presented his monthly report to the committee as follows. As of February 8th, the Sheriff's Office went back to pre-COVID Category A and B bond rules. This allowed the Sheriff's Department to hold people in jail in lieu of bond until they post their time out with a $30 per day credit on Category B offenses. Brzee continues to work on the body scanner. It could be another 60 days before it is received, but it will include additional helpful software to detect drugs and other objects. The MAR program is expanding with drug abuse counseling and working with other stakeholders. Brzee met with the Iroquois Memorial Hospital to review the medical contract. Brzee will be meeting with Iroquois County Workforce Development to provide a plan and program in the jail for inmates and their reentry into the workforce. Brazee is working on getting cell phones for the patrols to use while on duty for photographs, videos, texts, calls, and emails. Resignation was received from a deputy effective March 24th. Brazee is researching the best options for replacement. Deputy Josh Snyder began investigations on February 27th. Snyder's initial duties will be assisting and working with DCFS, but he will also be meeting and assisting with general criminal investigations under Lieutenant Eric Starkey. Snyder has completed the sexual assault investigations training and is slated for the new detective and lead homicide detective course within the next few months through our mobile training at no cost. Brazee will be receiving a lease for the office space in the courthouse. 45 arrests/intakes in February, 33 male, 9 female, 2 juveniles. February jail population. Daily average population, 23.71. Average length of stay, 75.33 days. 23, 18 male, 4 female, 1 ankle bracelet. February medical, 2 hospital/emergency room/prompt care visits this month. 0 IMH doctor appointments, 4 mental health visits to the jail, 15 nurse practitioner visits, 5 inmate medical and intake exams, 4 dentist visits, 3 IMH lab, 7 telehealth visits, 0 Dwayne Dean Clinic and Kankakee methadone, 0 Gibson area mental health, 0 digestive diseases consults, 3 inmates attended or started on buprenorphine. Jail overtime for February, 44.5 hours paid, 77.75 hours to comp. Part-time hours for February, 0. Coroner Bill Cheatham reported an offer was submitted for the purchase of a building for the morgue. The offer was rejected with no counteroffer. Cheatham reported 2 overdoses this year. Probation Supervisor Barb King reviewed the probation and court services activity report for February with the committee. Also, King informed the committee of issues with the carpet in the probation office. Probation Director Tom Latham will address the issue with management committee. The committee reviewed Circuit Clerk Lisa Hines' monthly report. ETS Director Eric Raymond distributed his monthly report to the committee. There was no old business, there was no new business. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Scott Watts and seconded by Williams to pay the judicial and public safety claims subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. As there was no further business at the time before the committee, it was moved by Watts, seconded by Hughes to adjourn the meeting at 3:27 p.m. Motion carried by a voice vote. All which is respectfully submitted, signed by members present, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the Judicial Public Safety Committee report. Is there a second? Mr. Watts, are there any questions or comments on the report? Mrs. Crowe?
Excuse me. These are for Clint, just, the sheriff, just to better understand. I thought we had cell phones. You're working on getting cell phones for photographs, videos. I thought we had cell phones.
We've got the flip phones that are in the squads, but those, it would be easier for the use of the email and photographs instead of using the cameras that are in the squads that are not. So, instead of having the cameras in the squads, we would use the cell phone for a multitude of things.
So you're talking about a new cell phone for each squad? Okay,
for each deputy.
okay. Oh, for each deputy, not in each squad?
Correct.
Would they be using those then to communicate as well, and we would just retire the old ones?
Yes, yes.
What lease for office space in court?
Pretrial services has been utilizing an office space in the adult probations area, since October. They're gonna pay $12 a square foot for that office space.
And who did you say that was?
Pretrial services. So it's through the state.
So it's actually a state agency that's gonna,
Correct.
That was set up through the Safety Act that is now suspended. But that part of the Safety Act has survived. The pretrial services part of it.
So he meets with every inmate that is in custody, provides a report to the state's attorney, the judge, and to the public defender about that subject.
well, so this is in addition to meeting with the public defender. So I'm sorry, what's the purpose? What do they do in the big picture?
No, that's a good question. Under the pretrials, or the Safety Act, they created under the AOIC, or the Administrative Office for Courts, they created this service, or this department for pretrial services. So every county has at least one, we have a single person for pretrial services. So what he or she does is they interview defendants who are being held at the jail. They run a criminal history of that defendant, and they'll interview family members. So it's kind of geared towards establishing what the bond should be. Again, this was under the umbrella of what we thought was going to be the Safety Act, which has now been suspended. But this part of the Safety Act has survived. So the state's funding it. It's not really coming out of the county budget. So the state's going to be paying this lease fee. But this part of the Safety Act has survived and is now still being operable.
Is this a state employee then that just comes here
Yes.
like what, weekly, monthly, something
He's
like
there
that?
every day is here.
He's here every day?
Yep.
Does
Yeah,
he reside in the county?
Yes.
So,
Reed Anderson is his name.
who?
Reed Anderson is
Oh.
his name, so, and he lives in Cecil Park.
Yeah, I know where
Yes. So he's been doing it since, like Clint said, I think since October.
And they're gonna pay backdated from October. It'll be around $500 a month that they'll get into the county.
Okay, all right. So my last question is, what is buprenorphine? And it seems to be of significance that we note that we have 3 inmates started on it. What's it for and why is that of significance?
That's for people that come in to the jail and they're having withdrawal symptoms. So the correctional officers do a report on these people and check their vitals several times throughout the day. They'll report that to the nurse. The nurse is able to prescribe this buprenorphine to them, which levels out the withdrawal symptoms. And that's how we got this medical assisted recovery grant. And it's also what the state opioid settlement funds are being used for, to fund that program.
Okay.
It's helping out with the jail population to reduce the medical incidents that we have.
Methadone would probably be included with that too, wouldn't it?
It
Same
is.
category.
Yes, and that's with the Dwayne Dean. We had one inmate that we had to take him to Dwayne Dean weekly.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Awful? Yes. Sure?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Whitlow?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Barron?
Yes.
Bentz?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Crow?
Yes.
Ducat?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
And McTaggart?
Yes.
Okay, Finance IT Committee, Mr. McTaggart.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom was referred Finance IT would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on March 9th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Members present were McTaggart, Behrens, Alt, Bowers, Geiger, and McGinnis and Watts were absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, Finance Manager Jill Johnson, Sheriff Clint Brzee, County Clerk Brian Suber, Treasurer Kurt Albers, Supervisor of Assessments Bob Yergler, Probation Director Tom Latham, ETS Director Eric Raymond, and Susie Werner with Homestar Insurance. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Lyle Behrens and seconded by Bowers to amend the agenda to enter into executive session following the public comments. Motion carried by a voice vote. It was moved by Behrens and seconded by Bowers to approve the amended agenda. The motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. It was moved by McTaggart and seconded by Behrens to enter into executive session at 9:03 a.m. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees in the public body. Motion carried by a voice vote. It was moved by Alt and seconded by Geiger to come out of executive session at 9:17 a.m. Motion carried by a voice vote. Susie Werner with Homestar Insurance reported we are almost through the first quarter of 2023 and the group coverage is at 82%. Werner will continue to monitor this throughout the year for the 2024 renewal. The transition from BPC to Envision is complete and everything is going well with claims feed. Department heads gave their monthly reports. They were as follows. Finance Manager Johnson reported she continues to work on the fiscal year 23 audit. Johnson completed an online governmental accounting class through GFOA. Treasurer Albers reported his office is preparing to print mobile home tax bills. Probation Director Latham requested approval from the committee for a department credit card. The probation department currently has a BP gas card, but Latham said he would like to replace it with a general credit card to purchase gas and other supplies as necessary rather than the probation officers receiving reimbursement checks for their purchases. It was moved by Behrens and seconded by Geiger to approve a credit card for the probation department. A roll call vote was taken and the motion carried. County Clerk Brian Suver reported last month she spoke about the recording fees increasing. There is a trailer bill on the law that has passed increasing the rental housing support surcharge, and the additional dollar will be included. Sheriff Brzee reported the body x-ray scanner for the jail is still a work in progress. Deputy Josh Schneider started investigations on February 27th for the DCFS position, is going to an additional training for sexual assault, to be a sexual assault investigator, lead homicide investigator, and new detective training. Brzee is working with the Iroquois Memorial Hospital on renewing and updating our contract for medical services. Brzee is also working with the Public Health Department for additional nursing services that we've had in the past. Brzee continues to research grants for body cameras, ballistic vests, and radio communications. A small grant was received from Walmart. Equipment and chairs were purchased for the jail from the MAR grant. Brzee said he has been utilizing funds from the federal opioid settlement for facility needs and programs in the jail and the community. Brzee explained they are holding people in the jail on statutorily set bonds instead of providing I-bonds during the pandemic. This will increase the amount of bond held by the circuit clerk to be used for fines and costs. Brzee is looking into purchasing cell phones for patrols to use on duty for phones. For photos, videos, text calls, and emails. Brzee received a resignation from a deputy effective March 24th, and he is looking at the best options for a replacement. Brzee provided an update on vehicles. As of March 7th, 2 patrol trucks are on rail cars now. The second investigator vehicle is ready to be shipped, and the Tahoes will be here in July. There are currently 2 vehicles down due to deer collisions. ETS Director Eric Raymond distributed an FY24 projected joint dispatch budget to the committee. McTaggart briefed the committee on the matters, stating that there have been issues in the past with the city of Watseka and other entities passing their budgets without knowing in advance what their joint dispatch fees are due to budgets being passed at different times of the year. ETSB collects the phone surcharge funds. The expenses include Raymond's salary, insurance, and equipment. ETSB is a separate fund and has its own board. The ETSB fund currently has about $1 million in the fund balance, with a projection of being in the negative by $20,000 at the end of the fiscal year. The Joint Dispatch Fund covers the telecommunicator salaries and expenses. The revenue received is from the county's general fund, the city of Watseka, ETSB, public safety tax, Riverside Fire Departments, public police departments, and ambulance services. Raymond's projected FY24 budget shows revenue of $126,000 from both the city of Watseka and the county's general fund, which the city of Watseka has agreed upon. Raymond reviewed the other projected budget items, including $157,500 from the public safety fund and $239,698 for the transfer from ETSB 911. Raymond said there is an upcoming project for the new radio console system with an approximate cost of $300,000. There is no grant to pay for this project. It is imperative that the Joint Dispatch Fund remains fully funded. McTaggart added that the telephone surcharge has not changed in years and recommended possibly forming a committee to evaluate options on, that's not what I said, but to evaluate options in increasing this fee. I was saying, what I was talking about was evaluate all the options for how we fund joint dispatch, which might include that. The current surcharge is a flat fee of $1.50. Raymond will be attending an upcoming meeting next Wednesday, and the main topic is the surcharge fee. Raymond expressed the need to increase the surcharge at the state level. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Geiger and seconded by Behrens to pay the claims subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. There was no old business. There was no new business. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Behrens and seconded by Bowers to adjourn at 9:58 a.m. The motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the Finance IT Committee report. Is there a second? Mr. Geiger. Are there any questions or comments regarding the report? Mr. Watts?
Is there any discussion about supplementing the BP card? I can think of at least a couple BPs in the county, local businesses, and they do get a break on the gas if they use the BP card rather than completely replacing it. Is there any thought of that at all?
I don't know that we did not talk about that.
I was gonna talk with Mr. Latham. We looked at something for that, so I just wanted to help him out with that, so.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
We've got it set up differently for our department, so I was gonna make sure that he's set up the same way.
Okay.
I was gonna help him with that.
Okay.
Mrs. Crowe?
I'm assuming that in committee, you might have gotten a copy of Mr. Raymond's.
Yes. There was a
Projected, just a minute, budgeted items, including $157,500 from the public safety fund. What would those projects be?
that's a little confusing there. So there was a discussion, John and I were there, and Mayor Allhands is basically the county and the Watseka, and the city of Watseka to kind of go over these numbers. So Eric presented what he thought the joint dispatch budget would look like for next year. And this 157,500 is really, we basically all agreed that, I think as we all know, the big four contributors to joint dispatch have been 911, ETSB, City of Watseka, the general fund, and public safety tax over the last however many years. All the other entities, Riverside has a contract that we have with them that has stipulated terms going forward for how much they pay, and each of the townships and local police departments have a standard increase of 5% each year. Long and short of a very long discussion was that basically everybody agreed tentatively, obviously this all needs to be approved in the budget, but Watseka agreed to that we would all increase our amount for 2024 by 5% in order to cover the projected costs. The only cost in the joint dispatch fund are the telecommunicator costs and their associated insurance and those things, and pension, whatever. Salary, just, yeah, they're the people costs associated with the telecommunicators. So long story short, he was basically projecting that's going to increase by 5%. We already have communicated with the smaller entities and smaller contributors that they have to increase by 5%, or that's been communicated in email to them so they can pass their budgets, which are coming due here in the next month. And after a very long discussion, we all agreed just to go up 5%, and that's what those numbers reflect. So the 157,500 and all those numbers is a 5% increase from 23 to 24.
And, okay, I'm following.
Does that make sense? Okay, yeah.
But the 157.5, are those for like capital expenditures, or is that to supplement salaries and benefits?
The supplement. That's where the public safety money has been going to since Basically, since the telecommunicators had joined the FOP and unionized. So it's always been going for that cause. It's never gone to ETSB or for equipment or any of those things. I guess the argument could be because ETSB is using money for equipment and those things that, it becomes a left
If
pocket,
you really
right
want to
pocket
go there,
things.
we could, but it
Yeah.
would be a nightmare for
Well,
Joe
exactly.
massaging numbers on an accounting purpose, so
Yeah.
the decision was really to leave it on the county side, so this way, one single journal entry can happen in the budget, and Iroquois County is not trying to give ETSB money, and then ETSB is sending money backwards.
It says here the current surcharge is a flat fee of $1.50. I thought there was a difference between landlines and cell lines. Could you clarify what those amounts are? I forget.
If there is a landline difference, I don't know that number off the top of my head. For cellular charges, which is about 85% of all of our phone calls, is $1.50.
They're both at $1.50.
Cell and landline?
It's all by state statute.
Well, I knew that, but I thought there was a difference. I thought it went like.
At one time, you're not mistaken, there was.
I think there's I don't know how much you want to give me a background.
Years ago, there was a difference, but I think it's all the same now.
The statute's coming up ends here on June 30th, right? So the state statute.
December 30th.
Sorry. So they need, State of Illinois would need to renew it or there's no money coming in. Presumably, my guess is they'll renew the same one they've renewed for the last however many years. There is work being done though within the state to reevaluate what that number should be and how they should do it and all sorts of things.
Because that was supposed to sunset like a year or two, maybe even 3 years ago.
I think it did and they just renewed it.
They renewed it.
Just had the same
Okay,
letter.
now we used to get a big payment, that the state had in a fund, or a sizable payment, I'll say that, and it was dispersed to all of the counties. What was left, I think it maybe typically came in June, maybe May, and the state started sweeping that fund. Have we gotten any of those payments lately?
Nothing other than the surcharge. Our ETSB receives 2 checks each month. One is the regular monthly, and then another one which is only a couple $1,000s, which is for counties with a population of less than 100,000. And we haven't seen any additional payments other than that in the last 5, going on 6 years that I've been.
And I can't remember what that was called, but we used to get a fairly sizable, like once a year when they would disperse the surplus and they'd send it to the counties.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, come on.
Well, it was. I mean, it's been a long time since we've received anything like that. I can tell you this, that there's a shell bill already filed in the Senate and in the House to extend for the new bill that'll be passed this year. The sunset on the shell bill is December 30th of 2025. So it'll be a 2-year bill, just like the one that's in progress or in existence right now.
Is that for $1.50 to remain at?
They have not included that yet. It's a shell bill. There'll be a lot more added into it before it eventually gets passed.
All right, thanks.
There is a lot of discussion on that $1.50, if it's going to increase, if it's going to stay the same. There's a lot of challenges to it. Seems to be a reasonable amount of support so far. Where it's going to end, time is going to tell.
One thing that you have to remember that complicates the process is that at $1.50, right now, there are several counties in the state that receive more money than they need. There are many counties like Iroquois that don't even come close to getting enough for what they need. So there's a big imbalance there that exists. And that's a big part of the argument that goes on in Springfield as to how they're going to work that out. So we will continue to push for more because we need more. Are there any other questions on the finance IT report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Sure.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Zumwalt. Alt.
Yes.
Barron's.
Yes.
Bent.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Ducat.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes.
And Awful.
Yes.
Carried.
Okay, Transportation and Highway Committee, Mr. Alt.
Mr. Chairman and members of the county board, your committee to whom was referred Transportation and Highway would take leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Iroquois County Highway Building on February 28, 2023 at 9 a.m. Members present were Alt, Zumwalt, Scher, and County Engineer Joel Moore. The meeting was called to order. There was no public comment. It was moved by Zumwalt and seconded by Scher to approve the agenda. Motion carried. Assistant County Engineer Doug Butzel read the bids as follows. Sheldon 21-25120-01-DR, County-wide BCO, County-wide stockpile chips, County-wide stockpile CM 6/10, County-wide spreader box, County FOB oil. Cook Township furnished an application of calcium chloride were read. No action was taken. It was moved by Zumwalt and seconded by Scher to table action until the regular Transportation Highway Committee meeting was held March 10th, 2023. Subject to bid tab review. Motion carried unanimously. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Zumwalt, seconded by Scher, adjourned at 9:55 a.m. Motion carried, all of which is respectfully submitted for this report. And a copy of the bids are attached on all of those items.
Let's do the other report and then we'll just approve them with one motion.
Yeah, would you like it in one motion?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, a member of the county board, your committee to whom was referred Transportation Highway would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Iroquois County Highway Building on March 10, 2023 at 9 a.m. Member present were all Zumwalt, Crow, Williams, Chad McGinnis was absent. Also present, Assistant County Engineer Doug Butzel. It was moved. The meeting was called to order. There was no public comments. It was moved by Williams and seconded by Zumwalt to approve the agenda. Motion carried by voice vote. Committee and Finance reports for the month was reviewed. It was moved by Williams and seconded by Crow to pay the bill subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. County Highway, $74,330.89. County Bridge, $2,145.87. County Matching, $5,574.28. TBP, $9,252. County MFT, $37,792.28. Township MFT, $1,156.50. Assistant County Engineer Doug Butzel reviewed bids from the bid letting on February 28th. Butzel explained bids received from metal culverts were credit letting due to what was believed to be in error with the amount of their bid check. Butzel read their bid as follows. The pipe culvert group 5, Artesia, $5,792. Ashcombe, $4,640. Beaver, $4,211. Beaverville, $18,074. Fountain Creek, $6,262. Iroquois, $2,964.
Florida, 10,664. Martin, 14,900. Excuse me, 14,690 and 80 cents. Middleport, $6,801.60. Milford, $10,497.90. Iroquois County, $47,062. No votes were received from Martin Group 3. Moved by Zumwalt and second by Williams, accept bid from the February 28, 2023. Letting accept escrow group number 3. By roll call vote, second, motion carried. President, also presented is a resolution for County Bridge Fund on Beaver BR. Matching cost for the county is $36,000. Is moved by Crowe and second by Williams to approve the resolution for County Bridge Fund on Beaver BR. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. Also discuss the resolution for Illinois Fund on Iroquois County RS. The entire amount will need to be exhausted. Motor fuel tax funds will fund the remaining of the project at $265,000. It's moved by Williams and seconded by Zumwalt to approve the resolution for rebuilding Illinois Fund on Iroquois County RS for $1,233,923.85. Roll call was taken, motion carried. Is moved by Williams and seconded by Crowe to approve the resolution for MFD funds in the amount of $265,000 for County Road 8. A roll call was taken, motion carried. During new business, Butler informed the committee of the letting in Springfield on April 29th. The letting will be for 2 projects to utilize federal funds. These projects include a bridge on County Road 42 and a paving job in Loda from US 45 to the Fort County line. Each project will need an approved agreement for federal participation and a resolution. County matching for the County Highway 42 project is $39,000. It was moved by Crowe and seconded by Zumwalt to send a recommendation to the county board to enter into the joint funding agreement for the project on County Road 42, Section 19-00078-02-BR. A roll call was taken, motion carried. It is moved by Crowe and seconded by Williams to send a recommendation to the county board to adopt a resolution for County Road 42, Section 19-00078-02-BR. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. County match for the paving job in Loda on County Road 10 is $240,000. It is moved by Zumwalt and seconded by Williams to send recommendations to the county board to enter into the joint funding agreement for the project on County Road 10, Section 19-00154-01-RS. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. It is moved by Williams and seconded by Zumwalt to send the recommendations to the county board to adopt a resolution for County Road 10, Section 19-000-154-01-RS. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. As there was no old business, as there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Crowe and seconded by Zumwalt to adjourn at 9:40. Motion carried by the board. All of which are respectfully submitted. I move for the adoption of this report by the board.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve both county highway reports. Is there a second? Mr. Whitlow. Are there any questions or comments on the reports? Being none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Watts?
Yes.
Whitlow?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Barron's?
Yes.
Bentz?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Crow?
John?
Ducat?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Just the
Hughes?
about some other point.
McGinnis?
Yes.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Awful? And Sure.
Yes,
Motion carried.
okay.
Once the meeting was over, it was brought to our attention that our next committee meeting falls on Good Friday. Being a holiday, and we have problems anyway with attendance, having a quorum, we would like for the board to consider to move the date for our committee to the 7th, following the Finance Committee meeting. And we need to advertise a new date and time because there will be a letting be made at that date. It has to be made no later than Good Friday.
Make it 6.
Correct.
The 6th, is it? Yeah, it's the 6th that you want to move it to.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
At what time?
We better set a time too, because if we're letting, there might be bidders coming in, so I suggest 10:30. Will your meeting be over by then?
Sure.
We'll probably have it. I suggest still having it out at the county building, because that's all our lettings been done.
you want to have it here
No, I'd say out there because.
at the highway building?
Where people come to do their letting in the past. That's where
Right.
they'll show up. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
yeah. Okay. I don't know, we don't
I
necessarily
don't
need a
think
motion
we
to
really
do
need a
that,
motion
just
to
so everybody understands what we're gonna be doing, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to the agenda, number 3 is what we have to handle here next, and Doug Butzo is here with us this morning to go over this part of the meeting, or part of the agenda and so forth, so we're gonna be doing this separate discussion and action on these recommendations that were just identified in the minutes. So Doug, if you'd kind of run through that and make everybody familiar with what's going on, appreciate it.
Okay, we have a bridge project in a couple miles southeast of Ashland. That'll be, it'll use, normally would use 80% federal funds and then 20% local match. In this particular case, for this particular project, there was a certain amount of COVID money that was allocated to the highways or the local agencies. And so there's, the county share will be less. In this particular case, there's $257,564.86 of COVID funds that are available, which will be used first, and then it will be the 80-20 split after that. We need to, for the projects to be let in Springfield, the county has to execute a joint agreement between the county and IDOT, and a part of that agreement, which is the second step of each of these, is that agreement requires a resolution showing that the county has funds available to pay for their portion. So in this case, then that results in a resolution of $39,000 for the county's matching tax to pay for the county share of the project. So that one's A and B.
Yeah, Doug, let's do a separate motion on that if we.
That's fine.
Because they're listed here separately, so. We have a motion to approve this agreement. Mr. McTaggart, second by Mr. McGinnis. Everybody understand from Doug's explanation what we're doing? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Whitlow?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Barron's?
Yes.
Bentz?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Crow?
Yes.
Ducat?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Awful?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
And Watts?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Doug, do the other one.
Then the other project, which is also a joint resolution, and then separately there's a joint agreement with the IDOT, and then a resolution to, for the county share. That's strictly an 80-20 split. It's to pave County Highway 10 from US 45 to Ford County line. That's about 2.5 miles on 200 North Road. The county's 20% share of that comes to $240,000. So it's a fairly, it's expensive to pave a mile road. It's a better part of $500,000 to pave a mile of road these days, all inclusive.
That's pretty heavily traveled road too.
Yes, the east mile and a half is, I think, an ADT of at least over approximately 1,500 vehicles a day. Because that encompasses the Vales Lake and Lake Iroquois area.
Yep. Okay, do we have a motion for that part? Mr. Hughes, is there a second? Mr. Zumwalt? Are there any questions or comments on this matter? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Williams?
Yes.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Barron's?
Yes.
Bentz? Bowers?
Yes.
Crow?
Yes.
Ducat?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Awful? Sure?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
And Whitlow?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda is appointments. Do we have a motion to approve them as listed? Mr. Bowers, is there a second? Mr. Geiger, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That takes care of that. Next are the claims. We need a motion to approve claims. Mr. McTaggart, seconded by Mr. Williams. Are there any questions or comments on the claims? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Alt? Barron's? Bentz?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Crow?
Yes.
Ducat?
Yes.
Geiger?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yep.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Awful?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Watts? Whitlow?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, is there any old business to come before the board this morning? Is there any new business to come before the board? Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, I noticed that the Health Committee and the Tax Planning Committee is scheduled for April 4th. Has that been changed or is that still?
There's a special meeting on April 3rd
Oh, I see.
at 11 o'clock. That's a special meeting. This meeting on the next day, the 4th, is still the same.
Okay,
The meeting 2 days back to back.
so even though that's election day, go ahead. That we're gonna have.
The building's not closed on election day this time. General election.
I specifically talked to the county clerk to make sure. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Bowers? Seconded by Mr. McTaggart. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your